Ready to launch the Sunday Roundtable, and joining us this morning are Democratic political analyst Marianne Marsh and Republican political analyst Lizzie Guyton. Great to see you guys. Thanks for your time. Let's start with Ayanna Pressley. How is she managing this political moment, Marianne?
She's doing, I'm impressed with what she's doing, given the fact that she's had some partnerships that made huge difference already, not only in Massachusetts, but across the country. I mean, she and Elizabeth Warren alone single-handedly did college student debt, convinced Biden to rescind it. She's working with Jim McGovern now on making hunger history on food insecurity. And as she always says, and I will quote her here, policy is her love language, and she uses it to raise her profile, and that puts her in a position of opportunities show up across, down the line.
Lizzie, what's your read?
Well, I agree with what she said, that it's positive to see a diverse woman on the presidential ticket. But look, policy-wise, she's still a member of the squad, very progressive on her politics. And if you look around the country, we're seeing a movement away from that. We're seeing other squad members lose their primaries. And even for Kamala Harris, as she's starting to inch out into some of her policy positions, she's moving away from her progressive ways and more into the center.
All right, let's talk about the DNC, which kicks off tomorrow in Chicago. Will this event be more than a pep rally for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, or will policy or personality be the focus? What do you think, Lizzie?
We do need to hear more policy from the Harris-Walz campaign instead of just why Kamala Harris is saving the Democratic Party from Joe Biden. So what are those policies going to look like? Are we going to hear more about her talking about her record on the economy, on inflation, on border security, and how she's going to actually have something new for Americans?
Is her record Biden's record?
It is. You know, the only person that's just as responsible for Biden's record besides Biden is Kamala Harris. But we're not talking about that right now. She's on the teleprompter. She's introducing herself the way that she wants the American people. And she's had a great start the past couple of weeks. But at some point, we're going to have to get into some substance.
Marianne, Trump has not had a great few weeks after this.
Everyone wishes he would be on the teleprompter on that one. I mean, here's the difference. I mean, Kamala Harris is about the future and about tomorrow. Donald Trump's about the past and yesterday. And Donald Trump has been finally, you know, the second press conference he gave this week, where it was clear, everyone told him, stick to the talking points about the economy. He would then, read them in the most monotone, like he was sedated way, and then throw in personal insults along the way. That's not going to do it. Just to address what Lizzie said, I think for everyone clamoring for Kamala Harris to give a press conference and do all this now, she's smartly going to wait and give her speech at the convention and define herself again in terms of what she's going to do and all that. And I think that's the best way to do it. She's got the clean shot with that speech.
To expand that front just a little bit, right now there is one presidential and one vice presidential debate on the books. That obviously the landscape can change because there's enough time. But how likely will we see more? Lizzie, what do you?
Well, we know Trump wants more debates. And again, for Kamala Harris, she's been on the teleprompter. She has not sat down for any interviews yet. And that should not be acceptable to the American people. It should not be acceptable to the media to actually have a conversation asking her pointed questions about what her vision is forward. We need to see more of that. These debates would provide an environment for that. We also know that, you know, the debates can be unpredictable, but these are where you see some big moments break through. I mean, look what happened to Joe Biden in his last debate.
Exactly.
Well, look, I mean, she just started this race barely 3.5 weeks ago. So of course she's going to do interviews and debates and all that. You're right. Donald Trump's desperate for debates. He's begging for them. She's agreed to one. And I think if they're going to be more, it will be based on how that one goes. If it's just filled with racism, sexism, misogyny, interruptions, she doesn't need to do another one. All she has to do is show that she's willing to stand up to Donald Trump, and then voters know that she will stand up for them.
Next item, Governor Healey will lead the Massachusetts delegation at the DNC. If the Harris-Walz ticket wins in November, Marianne, is Governor Healey headed to Washington?
I have no idea. None. And I know she was on the shortest of lists when Hillary Clinton was running. I would assume she would be on most people's short list, no matter who was running. But whether she would take it, I have no idea. I mean, look what she's doing. She's dealing with problems she inherited, dealing with problems that come up every day, and trying to keep her campaign promises too. It's a full-time job.
Do you think if Harris wins, do you think she's headed to Washington?
I think it would be a nice offer for Healey to get to go to Washington. I mean, look, it's been tough sledding for her recently. She's saying it's appropriate to rack up, you know, massive credit card bills for five-star hotels for her staff. We have the border crisis and the migrant crisis that is upending some Massachusetts communities. She had a dismal legislative session, so I think it might be nice for her to move on to something.
Well, in that light, how dramatic would the power shift be in Massachusetts should that happen if the governor did?
I think it's always good for Massachusetts when you have people from Massachusetts that are in positions of power in Washington in the administration. But let's not forget about the job that's here at home. I mean, the job as a governor is critical. You're very close to the people, you're very close to the issues, and Massachusetts certainly has its share of challenges right
What do
now.
you think, Marianne?
Well,
And it's a bunch of hypotheticals, sure.
Right.
Sure it is.
look, I mean, she did spend a lot of her time trying to fix the T, and there were short 1,100 people and all that, so there's a lot there. It will be a seamless transition if it ever happened. It would be Kim Driscoll becoming governor, and they do everything together anyways. So that's the great thing about the Constitution. When you follow it, it takes care of itself.
All right. And now with so many top leaders out of town for the DNC, State Auditor Diana DiZoglio will likely hold down the fort as acting governor. Now, DiZoglio is also auditing expenses tied to the emergency shelter system. She has done an audit on the MBTA, and she continues to press for her audit of the state legislature. Does all the current political turn work to her favor, Lizzie?
We'll see. I don't think she's going to be a top contender in a future governor's race, whenever that may be. She's doing her job as auditor. She should be doing these things. That's what is expected of it. And there's, a lot of blame to go around on Beacon Hill right now with not a lot happening in the legislature, not a lot of accountability, a lot of unanswered questions about how things are going for some top issues.
Not a lot that got done at the end of session.
That's right. And it wasn't a housing session. It was a session to cover everything that's important in Massachusetts, including economic development. There's healthcare reform that was left on the table. There are a lot of big issues that are still just collecting dust.
Marianne, does all the political turn work for her?
I mean, it does when she's campaigning. I think the more interesting thing is how will she handle this week? She gave sort of a cryptic answer saying, well, we'll see what comes up and how we handle it. I think everyone should watch what goes on this week and how she handles being acting governor. And maybe that's a preview into how she would continue if she were to run for governor or anything else. And last point, I always say she can do a better job with the audits and going out there and selling them on substance and showing people how she's saving them and their community's money. And it would be great to see her do that.
We continue on the record. Stay with us.